We got three topics tonight. Let's kick some butt. I stole that one from the Wholesome One. Here we go. Miami Hurricanes live for the next 60 right here at the Voice of College Football. And the only way this gets revved up is because we got this guy in the chair, the Wholesome One. How you doing
Yes,
tonight,
sir.
sir?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. It's like, again, it's always a blessing to come before you after a big workout. So I'm a little fired up, ready to get after it. And today we're talking about something that's very near and dear to my heart because, of course, as a first-time starter, as a center at American Senior High School in Hialeah, Florida, offensive line is very, very important. Collegiately play defensive line. So in between the big boys in the middle, as always, was personal to my heart. And today we're going to do a deep dive on offensive line. We're going to talk about Coach Dawson. We're also going to talk about Leonard Hankerson.
Yeah, so why don't we start with the news of the day first and foremost, or the news of the week is that, it was announced that Leonard Hankerson is being interviewed for the wide receiver coach position, a much needed upgrade there to get somebody in there that can upgrade the position.
Yeah, I mean, and at the same time, Mark, it's just like having the inside linebackers coach. Okay, Charlie Strong is a pretty good darn linebacker. He's a pretty good DC, but he just so happened to be a DC and coach linebackers with someone else. And are we going to say that he's not good because our linebackers didn't play well? So it's also the scheme, it's the philosophy, it's the fit, it's being able to teach it in a smooth transitional way. So it's a lot of factors that goes into wide receivers and position coaches and different position coaches, offensive line, running backs, wide receivers, defensive end, linebacker, where these coaches that have a specific group of young men to succeed. Now, the wide receiver position at Miami, I mean, you talk about some of the best players in all of college football have worn that U and have played the wide receiver position, but that's the past. Long are the days is Ken Dorsey coming off of a play action, throwing a deep bomb to Andre Johnson. Long are the days of Santana Moss taking a post route against Virginia Tech to the house. Okay, and even more recently, a guy like a Stephen Morris being able to come off of a nice play action out of the ace formation and hit even a David Njoku at tight end or a Philip Dorsett on a bomb. Okay, so it's been a while since we've really seen the wide receivers or remove tight end and things of that nature really boom in the orange and green. Now, could you point to that being someone else's fault? Could you point to that being a lack of recruiting? Could you point to that being a lack of development? Either way, all of those things have not clicked to where a position group that is historically among the best has really dropped off. You may not talk about Miami offensive line. You may not talk about Miami defensive ends. But when you think Miami Hurricane wide receivers, some of the best to ever put on cleats and a pair of cleats and some pants and a helmet have done it here. So there's a lot of excuses or reasons why things haven't worked out. But what I like to see is that Coach Cristobal is addressing a big issue, and that was finding a scheme, presumably, and we'll get into that soon, Coach, talking about Coach Dawson, but a scheme that will show what these wide receivers can do for the orange and green.
Nothing wrong with Leonard Hankerson's last season at Miami.
Yeah.
2012, 72 catches, 13 touchdowns.
He broke Michael Irvin's touchdown record in a single season. I don't think that's been touched again since then. Oh, well, no, I think Rambo broke that too. Rambo had a really, really good last season at Miami, but for the longest, Leonard Hankerson had held on to that. And that also comes from the fact that Leonard Hankerson took it upon himself to make himself great, Mark. Um, don't know if you know this story, but I want to look it up and make sure I get the coach's name right.
Charleston Rambo did not break that record. He caught 79 passes. I think that might be the record you're thinking about, Rambo.
Okay.
But the touchdown record, no, he did not
Okay.
break.
There was a special coach, and I can't find the article. Somebody in the chat or in the comment section, help me out. There was a coach that Leonard Hankerson went to going into his last season at Miami, and he knew that he was not getting the coaching that he needed at Miami. So he went to a private coach. He was having a super underwhelming career up until this point, and then boom, Pops, I mean, he couldn't catch anything, Mark. He goes and finds this private coach, and now he's able to, he almost had, he
Wow.
had a very record-breaking senior season at Miami due to that, or last year at Miami, as far as what he brought to the table. Now, in the years of me doing this, Mark, we've had 4 different wide receivers coaches. I've come on and I've overhyped, and this is no shot at Hankerson. This is just the coach, the position period. We had, is it Statterfield, or is that the head coach for Louisville? The wide receiver coach for Penn State that came down to Miami in
Stubblefield,
2019.
right? Dana
Stubblefield. There
Stubblefield,
we
who
go.
used to play
I
for
usually,
Purdue.
I get those two mixed up a lot. So Stubblefield, right? I came on, Mark, and you pull up the film, and I'm like, oh, he's going to teach him the technique and the hand placement and how to look the ball in. And we reflect on that. Before that, you had now the current wide receiver coach up at Tallahassee and a former really good player for them. Why do I always go blank on names? Bald-headed
That's
brother.
Darian Higgins, right?
Yeah. Coach Higgins. Yeah, he was here. And the wide receivers at Miami had some good stats, but the consistent hands was not there. They were amazing blockers, but not the best hand-wise. Had issues with that. Then Rob Likens. And it looked like, Mark, we couldn't drop it if we tried. unless we were playing UNC or Oklahoma State or Mark Pope or D. Wiggins was on the field. Then, yeah, we
Those are the
couldn't catch the
first 2
football.
guys I think of.
Jeez, man. Wish them the best, though. Hope they're doing okay in life. But as players, anyhow, we had a nice spark where you saw what the spread can do, what that position looks like, what it's like to see people like Rambo, and then sometimes to see people like JT, Jeff Thomas, and Amon Richards, and some of these guys. Dugans, thank y'all. Appreciate y'all. Dugans was the
Yes,
coach.
Ron Dugans.
Ron Dugans. There we go. Appreciate you. Okay, Will Scott, we got it. We fixed it. Thank you. Appreciate it. Neither one of us want to sound like we're wrong, so we definitely appreciate it. But Rob Likens comes in, and him and Coach Rhett last year, their combination of what? The true spread. Now remember this term, spread, because we're going to get into a different terminology. We'll talk about the air raid in a second. Now, there's a difference in the two based on philosophy, to my knowledge, that I will explain here pretty soon. But in the spread system, it was about the receivers and always having somebody open and running level routes and things of that nature, and mixing a little RPO with De'Aaron King, and then even mixing a little air raidiness when Tyler Van Dyke came in, which is why in 4 games he almost touched 3K, because we were just letting that thing fly. Okay. And then we got what we got last year. I think our leading receiver had 300 yards, and we were ranked 119th out of 131 teams, and we averaged 19.5 points per game. And then people wanted to point fingers at the talent. And when these same guys the year before, I guess they magically forgot how to play football in one offseason, Mark, when some of those players the year before were doing very, very well for themselves. And then this year, now they're not smart enough to learn the playbook, and they suck. So there's that for you. Now, we talk about Coach Leonard Hankins, okay? I'm excited about the fact that he even got an interview, Mark, because what that shows me is the professionalism, the seriousness, the grit, the willing for him to take a job at like SF Austin and then be a quality control coach where he's getting no credit for it. His off-season personal training where he's getting no credit for it. And then finally gets an opportunity to be the wide receivers coach for the 49ers, a professional team. Again, that doesn't mean every slot receiver we have is going to turn into Deebo Samuels. Okay, so let's pump the brakes, y'all. But he did a very, very good job to make a big-time offensive-minded coach, like their head coach out there with the 49ers, want to bring him and promote him from being an assistant to the position coach and coaching his wide receivers. It just says a lot that he checked off enough boxes. that he is willing to put in that work and that he has the interest of coming back home to Miami to help out with the wide receiver position. Mainly all I really got to say about that, Mark. I don't want to say he needs a job. He definitely deserves an opportunity. I don't want to say that just give it to him because he had a really good season here, or that he put on the orange and green, or he knows what it takes to grind on Green Tree practice field. Yeah. We don't. None of that stuff means much if you can't get the young men to respond. So I personally love the opportunity that the brother got for the interview. If he gets the job, if he accepts the job, I'll be very, very happy for him. I think his resume is qualified enough. I know that Coach Cristobal likes to do extensive interviews and will cross-examine and make sure that he picks the right guy moving forward, because he absolutely has to. Because his hires last year absolutely stunk. Okay, so this year he has to get it right so that we can win now. And I believe getting the right wide receiver coach in there, mixing in with Coach Dawson's scheme, is of the utmost importance to be able to help these young men feel confident in what we want to do offensively and specifically at the wide receiver position.
We do this every Thursday night with the Wholesome One, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Leave those comments and questions and consider supporting us like Falconer X, whom we always appreciate. Falconer X. You know what's funny? Look at this. This is a Nefarious jumping in with the, it's like clockwork that it's Falconer X right out of the gate with a super sticker that I just assumed it was Falconer X. But look at Nefarious. Thank you so much for the contribution. Appreciate that.
Is Falconer X even in the chat today?
I haven't seen him.
Hope he's doing all right. Never misses a show. Usually he's here waiting on us.
I know it. I know it. And I saw that red sticker right out of the gate, and I just assumed.
So Mark, let me ask you this before we get into Coach Dawson, right? What is the importance of your viewpoint? We've seen some wide receiver coaches kind of take off. I mean, for example, even though it didn't work out at Miami, Coach Josh Gaddis is a wide receiver coach and went on to win the Bros and all that kind of stuff. And he's still looking for a job. So, leave that as it may. What is the importance of wide receiver coaching? We see someone up in your favorite neck of the woods over in Columbus, coaching in Ohio, now being like named OC by namesake, killing it and absolutely killing it as far as recruiting, developing, pushing them out to the NFL. What do you see as the importance of LSU a couple years ago with Joe Brady? He's a wide receiver guy. What do you see like the push and the importance of the wide receiver coach from your perspective, Mark?
Well, when we all start to play football, whether that's in the backyard, on the street, and we think we know what we're doing, and we run pass patterns, and you run a square in, and you do this, and you run a button hook, and all that sort of thing. I think we get ingrained in our minds that that's what we're watching on Saturday and Sunday. That everything's just you're running and so forth, and then you start to either play more yourself, or you start to learn, from getting around guys like you and, understanding the game a little bit more, is that there's no way that these sophisticated passing offenses can survive by always running the same routes and knowing that you're just going to run this route regardless of the coverage or regardless of how your man's playing you. No, it's so much communication between quarterback and wide receivers seeing what's out there and then adjusting routes. If my man's going to do this, then I'm going to do that. And then being on the same page, that I got to think that there's a ton of role that the wide receiver coach plays in teaching a wide receiver how to adjust to how, number one, the coverage is playing him, or his individual man's playing him from a physical standpoint, the way he's playing him, but also from a coverage standpoint. So he's finding, he's breaking his route off because he knows you know, there was a blitz or,
Mhm.
adjusting the route based on the coverage. And,
Mhm.
that not
Option routes,
necessarily
things
being
of that nature.
instinctive for most
Right.
guys, those guys having to be taught that.
Yeah, yeah. I think I'm wanting to let you finish. I just popped in there because I think back to I don't know the young man's name, but I know that Justin Fields go back to that playoff game before the national championship, where Ohio State more likely than not would have given LSU an even better game, and in some people's eyes might have beat them. I'm just that's what they say. I mean, that Ohio State secondary was very, very talented. That team, good friend of mine, Chase Young, just saying they had a very, very talented team. Okay. And because of a mixed communication between the receiver and the quarterback and the misread of the coverage resulted in an interception where they just threw it straight to the safety because they read it wrong. And I don't know who is the fault in that. I don't habla quarterback and I habla un poquito wide receiver. Okay, play it in the fronts. Once we get further and further out, Holloway no comprende. Okay, he's speaking a whole different language to me. But you know, I bring that up because when you said that, the first thing that popped in my mind
Uh-huh.
was a chance at the championship game was there. Now you could point that to Coach Hart. I don't even know if Hartline was the full receivers coach or was he an assistant at that time. I don't know. It's like 4 years ago at this time. But and mishaps happen all the time. O line may step down and miss the DN and forget that the running back is going that way and not. And do you blame the O line coach or whatever? But I'm saying that is something that really popped into my brain when you think about that. Like, wow, if we're not on the same page, if the quarterback coach and the wide receiver coach aren't speaking the same fluent language and teaching these young men that and really hammering it home, it can cost you a game like that very moment did.
Absolutely. That is a classic example right there. No question about it. So we went deep dive on Lance Guidry coaching the defense
Right.
last week. We went to attack Shannon Dawson uh, coming in from. Uh, I'm getting it mixed up now because I'm thinking Guidry, Marshall, Tulane, but with Shannon Dawson coming in and
Houston.
yes, from Houston.
Yep.
And
Coming in from Houston. Yep.
your thoughts about what you've seen on film?
I've had a chance to initially, let's go ahead and throw this out there. The initial comparison to what Coach Dawson is bringing to the University of Miami. Who do you think Miami fans is saying that he's similar to, Mark? That coached at Miami.
Oh, they coached at Miami.
Yep. Who do you think that they're saying?
Well, he's not similar to Dan Enos.
Mm-mm.
Uh, I'm trying to think before Dan Enos,
Them Canes just answered it for you.
Rhett Lashley.
Yep.
Oh,
That's the
okay.
person that everybody automatically, you hear a certain term, you hear a group of five, you hear offense, you automatically think they're going straight to Coach Lashley. Now, it's a ever so slightly change in the philosophy. Okay. Here's why. A big difference in the air raid as opposed to the spread. Now, when you say that, it's just like saying chocolate cake. Okay, I probably shouldn't be thinking about chocolate cake after the gym, but who doesn't think about chocolate cake after the gym? Unless you're allergic. There's different kinds of chocolate cake, Mark. You could do chocolate double layered cake. You could do better than sex chocolate cake. You can do chocolate cake with vanilla inside, chocolate cake with all chocolate, with chocolate icing, chocolate cake itself. You can do a chocolate pound cake. You can do all different kinds of ways in using the vague term of chocolate cake. Okay. Yes, the fat guy made a cake joke. Yes, that's what it is. So when someone says air raid, there's different variations of that offense, right? You have now a lot of people like to do this thing where if they run the ball, they throw power in there because it sounds cool. The power spread, the power raid. If they run an up tempo where it's just focused on the quarterback, it's a true air raid. If it's a balance and they run the ball, plus they also pass the ball, then what do they call that, Mark? It's a balance raid. Okay, we got all these different terminologies, but it's mainly about where do these coaches come from? Their tree. Okay, who has taught them, and then what have they sprinkled on top of it to make it their own? Rhett Lashley, okay, came here and ran the spread, right, Mark? Do you know that this man, he comes from the Gus Malzahn spread, where it was all about running the football, featuring the quarterback. But then when Rhett Lashley got his hands on it, especially his Miami version, it was more about the quarterback and wide receiver. And it felt as if he just called runs just as dummy calls to get to, 2nd and 9 or 2nd and 8. But he really wanted to get to the part of the play sheet where we started airing it out. Again, that's just how we felt and how it felt to observe it and to review it for me. Well, when I look at Coach Dawson's version of the air raid, I get a little bit of the same feeling. As far as it's very quarterback friendly, it's very wide receiver friendly as far as the way that he can get players open, the way his route combinations, the way he always has a check down. So those things are big, Mark. One big complaint we had about Josh Gaddis is it felt like everything was either down the field or it was intermediate. We didn't really help Tyler with the dump off. We didn't help Tyler with being able to have an escape route, an option to get out of that play. We didn't like him to make adjustments at the LOS because he was still learning the offense. All right. When I look at what Coach Dawson is going to bring to the table, the biggest question that I personally have is the running game incorporation that Coach Cristobal and Coach Mirabal, and now the new running backs coach at the University of Miami, Miami Hall of Famer in the track and field, and a very similar name to the Miami Hurricanes and to the local Miami area, and that's Tim Harris. Now, this is Tim Harris Jr., who ran track and has earned his degree from the University of Miami way back in like 08, 09, when his brother Brandon Harris was playing for the Miami Hurricanes football team. His dad, Tim Ice Harris, Coach Ice Harris, who's a Booker T and Miami Northwestern legend and won the state championship at Miami Northwestern, Year of the Bull, if you ever heard of that video. And he also won a state championship at Booker T, Washington, um, as head coach there. He also was on this staff about a decade ago coaching running backs. Coach Ice Harris was here, leaving Booker T High School to come on to Al Golden's staff, who really helped secure Joe Yearby's flip from Tallahassee to Miami, and also to solidify Mark Walton, who was a big-time running back prospect out of Miami, who came to the University of Miami and is Miami Hurricanes' last 1,000-yard running back in the last couple of seasons in Mark. But how are we going to do it? How are we going to incorporate it? Okay, how is Miami going to really hone in on the run game? I love what he's doing in the past. I love how amazingly fluent it is with the quarterback position. Are we going to hire a wide receiver coach that it's going to make it, it's going to blend really good between the two? I have a couple of questions. I don't think that it's just a seamless glove that we're going to slide on and Mark, we're going to the Natty. I don't think that that's what's about to happen. I think there's going to be a lot of work and grinding going on. But I definitely like the hire. I like where Coach Dawson comes from. He spent years at West Virginia. And in his time, it wasn't the Pat White time, it was the Geno Smith years when he was there as the co-OC and wide receivers coach, and he did offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach there in West Virginia. So that's huge. And also, it was a little bit of a different time where he showed his RPO and maybe mobile quarterback version because he was De'Aaron King's offensive coordinator in his time for the Houston Cougars. So I definitely like the hire for Miami. I think it's a step in the right direction, not only right now for Tyler, but the future with a young man in Ja'Cory Brown. And I think Miami is in good hands. Again, have a little questions about what we're going to do at wide receiver coach and how that meshes, but more importantly, how we're going to really incorporate this run game out of the air raid.
The Wholesome Ones here breaking down Miami football. And of course, as we have many times here, we have let you know over the last few weeks that this would be the first week that we would start our position breakdowns. So the Wholesome One has made his way through a few coordinator hires the last 2 weeks and wanted to break down their schemes and what they do. Before we get to the O-line, we're going to start our series with the offensive line for the Canes.
Probably the most important position in some people's eyes equal to quarterback. In some others' eyes, more important than quarterback is what do the 5 men up front bring to the table? How does the scheme work for them? I mean, we watched 2 of the best offensive lines at the professional level, um, have some pretty good games. Okay. The Chiefs offensive line is ranked in the top 3. They won the Super Bowl. The next rate, the number 1 offensive line in all of football was the Philadelphia Eagles, and they made it to the Super Bowl. The number 2 rated offensive line, the 49ers, was the game before in that NFC Championship game. So offensive line is uber important. Okay, and Miami historically has put out some pretty good offensive lines, units, and in some years put out some great stellar offensive line men. Like one guy is just getting Heisman votes and things of that nature. Talking about Mount Cody, but it hasn't been that way. It has not been that way. Whether it's been, again, we could go down this road with so many positions. Mark, has it been the recruiting? Has it been the development? Has it been the strength and conditioning and nutrition? Either way, the offensive line production at Miami has had some talent on it, like a freshman, Devon Donaldson, like a first rounder in Eric Flowers, like a borderline. He had a really good season until tearing up his knee, and Jalen Rivers, a big 6'6", 330-pound left guard who was doing very, very well for Miami this past season. So we've had some spurts. We've had some guys in Orlando Franklin in the late 2000s who did very, very well here. Brandon Linder, John Feliciano, guys that come to mind that had a little spurts. But as far as a full unit, as far as something you could tip your cap and say, I know who's going to show up, the 6, 7, 8 deep we got of the 6'5" guys standing over there who can't wait to put the other guys in the dirt. Okay, we haven't had that. Now, certain places have a culture of offensive line, Mark. The Wisconsin Badgers, Iowa Hawkeyes, Alabama recently, Georgia's really stepped up as far as being great offensive line. Ohio State has had some spurts. Oklahoma, a lot of people don't realize Oklahoma has had some really nice offensive lines. Won a Joe Moore Award a couple seasons ago in 2019. The University of Michigan, University of Minnesota. Okay, these places have recruited, developed, and produced some of the best offensive lines. A place that didn't naturally come to mind, that when these 2 pairs of coaches stepped in, it's the Oregon Ducks. They developed some real offensive lines, especially the last 2 seasons out there, with a 9th overall pick as a left tackle turned right tackle who's out here catching passes to go to the playoffs in the NFL for the Detroit Lions. And, of course, a bunch of day 2 and day 3 guys. But that's where it starts, okay? You got your big first rounder, but are you putting out some 4ths? Are you putting out some 6ths? Is your center getting drafted? The size, the look, the unit. That offensive line played Wisconsin in a Rose Bowl, and the Oregon offensive line looked better than the Wisconsin offensive line. That's saying something. Now, of course, they don't go out there against each other, but you see these 2 units, you're like, man, can't wait to see those guys come off the ball. Well, guess what? Coach Mario Cristobal, Coach Alex Mirabal, are now in Miami. You may not have known that if you would have watched Miami play last year, what was happening on that offensive line. But some help came, Mark. And that's what we're about to get into. Help has shown up. Let's start out with the transfer. Javion Cohen, 6'4", 6'5", somewhere in there, 305 pounds. Started 26 games at right guard for Alabama State. No. For Georgia Tech. The Alabama Crimson Tide. Okay. And he's coming down to Miami. Now, hold on. The wholesome one thinks he's coming down because it's a great opportunity for him to move from the interior to the exterior, which can push him from a third or fourth round guy to a second, maybe a late first guy if he has a really good season. Because tackles are valued at a very, very high level. And Mark, me and you speak NFL draft really well. The 5th and 6th rated offensive tackle still may go first round because of the importance of that position. Okay. Now, Cohen breeds that as far as being a 6'4", 6'5", and he's in the early 300s, and he carries it very, very well. So I think he may want to make that transition to either that right tackle or that left tackle. This is my personal opinion. For all I know, he could be pushing 320 and wanting to be the role grader right guard and blow people off the ball. But it's just my opinion. As far as making that move from Alabama to Miami, one of the only reasons why I think he could do that is because he couldn't beat out the other two tackles at Alabama. But I think he could definitely beat out and earn a tackle position for the University of Miami Hurricanes. Another guy that came to help, I believe, is the number one offensive tackle in high school football. Some people have liked the young man that Proctor that was committed to Iowa that switched to Alabama. Kind of broke everybody's heart because it would have been cool to see the 5-star stay at Iowa. But hey, he was going to go first round either way. You go to Iowa, you're first round tackle at 6'8", 320. You go to Alabama, you can do the same thing. So either way, I guess he wants to chase that NIL money. Anyhow, Francis Maus from the islands of Samoa. This is a young man that comes in at a 6'5", 330 mark, and it is like when you look at him, you go, "Dang, that's what 5-stars look like." Mark, he came and took a picture, right? His first day on campus, next to some guys that have been at Miami 5-6 years, and you go, "That's a freshman." Now, to those of you all who are fans of good teams like Alabama, Oklahoma, Ohio State, you're used to guys walking in and like, okay, whatever. Hey, he's a freshman. We'll see him. No. Here, we're not used to getting the guys in the trenches that look like and truly can contribute to the team immediately. Okay, immediately. Now, he can step in to me at every position excluding center. He can help Miami at right guard, right tackle, and yes, even left tackle, in my personal opinion, watching Francis Maui-Goa. I think he could be like an All-American right guard, but I know for sure he could be an all-conference right tackle. I mean, he's the size, the feet, the aggressiveness, the hand placement, the coaching. This guy's going to be great for Miami, and there's just no doubt about it. Because you look at this young man, you listen to him speak, and again, some people could say, "Oh, here you hear Miami fans go hyping up guys." Sometimes when certain guys, you hear that maturity, you see how they carry themselves on the field, you see them, even after games, shaking hands and showing respect to people. They know dang well that they're based on the field, and they're still out there going to make sure they go shake the defensive end's hand or the head coach's hand. And you see them talking to like little things like that, Mark. It shows a different level in a young man. Because he could have easily just said, "Oh, I kicked your butt, you suck," and walk off. No, he's out there shaking hands and telling players that, "Hey, you keep working, man. You're making sure he stops and talks to the head coach of the opposing team while playing for IMG." and telling them, hey, God bless, hope you have a safe trip home and blah, blah, blah. That kind of stuff really stands out to me. It shows a different level of maturity when the best player, not a quarterback, takes time to do those kinds of things and knows the importance of carrying himself like a young man who's becoming a man, even though he's the best player on the football field. I could just talk ad nauseum about what I think Francis Mauigoa can be for the Miami Hurricanes, but I'll leave it that he's going to contribute this year, and I believe he's going to be a starter early on. Want to continue to talk about guys and help that's here. Another young man is Okinlola, Pancake Honcho. The recruitment was kind of nerve-wracking, not going to lie to you. What a great play on NIL names and likeness with the pancakes and the pictures is really cool. Size, former wrestler, shot put thrower, discus thrower. Focus from a preparatory school. Like academic All-American. Guy had a 4.3 GPA. I mean, like, the dude is uber impressive. And he doesn't get talked about enough. Why? Because he happened to be in Massachusetts and playing in that area, right? Now, there comes a point where you see these kinds of guys and you go, okay, who was he playing up against? Good friend of mine, Coach Hayes, likes to say, po little Timmy, okay? Now, what that means is there's some 5'8". You know, I'm not much taller than that, but just a 5'8", 190-pound DN who's just playing his heart out. That's he's going to Penn State to be an engineer, but he just wants to play football.
So I was going to say there for a second, he's not going to Penn State. Yeah, going to Penn State to be an engineer. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, he's going to Pitt to be an English teacher, just like his great grandfather. You know, it's those guys on his film, right? But there's something to be said about a guy that just maintains technique while dominating regardless of the competition. Okay, cool. But then there's this thing, Mark, called All-America games, right? And there's this thing called All-American practices before games, right? Mark, you ever heard of this stuff where you know, the best player from Minnesota gets a chance to go out there against the guys from Georgia, Florida, Cali, and get to show what he can do. And there was a lot of heads being turned because Pancake was putting people in the dirt and having them screaming on the way down because when he got a hold of them, Mark, they couldn't go anywhere. And now they're magically going the opposite direction. And they were 6'5", 250 pounds also. Okay. So big fan of what Pancake Honcho brings to the table and what he can do. And I also believe that here's where I'm a little iffy, Mark. Because in my lineup, I'm thinking Cohen is one of the tackles, right? Okay. So Zion Nelson comes back, and I believe he's going to be in conversation for one of the other tackles. Now, Cohen to me is a pure tackle. He could gain the weight to go to guard, but why? I think he could really contribute. And he could even beat out Zion Nelson at tackle, in my personal opinion. Just saying. The right guard is Mauigoa's, no questions asked, in my personal opinion. Jalen Rivers, the guy I'm about to talk about after this, is the left guard. Then you bring in Matt Lee, another guy transferred from UCF, as your center. So where do I think that where do I think that Pancake Honcho can do it? I believe Pancake definitely is going to be in conversation and in a big battle for that tackle opposite of Cohen. Could be left, could be right, battling out Zion Nelson, who I think is going to be the other opposite tackle for me. Again, bringing in Jalen Rivers coming back. a guy that was doing pretty well, grading in the 80s according to Pro Football Focus, and then tore his knee up, so he was out last year. Okay. You lose Ja'Kai Clark to the transfer portal. He follows his old offensive line coach, old offensive coordinator to SMU. Wish him all the best. So you have in a guy in Matt Lee, a really good player, all conference player out of the American Conference from UCF comes and he contributes. And Mark, I'm gonna tell you this story here, and then we'll go on to something else here. There's been this story about Matt Lee, and I don't necessarily know um, where it comes from, but supposedly this guy is like a little cuckoo, man. Like he's the kind of guy that'll get like pre-workout, take a scoop, take a straight, no water, nothing. Then go over to like the power clean and just throw like 405 up like it's nothing. And then just start screaming. And there's a story that he did that at his very first weight session at UCF. And he did the same thing at Miami, and everybody goes, okay. we got us a center, we got us a crazy guy on the team. And I like it. Again, I don't know the validity behind it, but it was hilarious to hear. And he just walked over and he just takes the power pre-workout, boom, full lockout, slams it down and goes, yeah. And everybody there is just like, so, hey, much love and respect to Lee if that's a true story. Crazy one, but hopefully it is true. But again, Francis Marigoa, Javion Cohen, Jalen Rivers, Matt Lee, Zion Nelson, a guy that's coming back, and he's been injured a lot, and hopefully he's completely ready to go this go around. One of the lowest graded players of all time in 2019. Then start to get some first round buzz. Again, like we say, Mark, due to the fact that he plays tackle. Yeah, he's a Power 5 starter. I mean, Mark, there's some guys I watch go like 30th overall here. Like he's a third round guy, but because he's 6'6", 310 and plays in a Power 5 conference, they think just pick him. We'll figure it out later as far as bringing that in. So I wish the best for Zion, but I definitely think that his position on this team could be in real jeopardy if he doesn't get it together.
It's funny to think that we're coming up on the 2023 season, so it will have been 4 years ago, correct me if I'm wrong, that Zion Nelson started as a true freshman against Florida in the first game of the season.
Yep,
And
I was there.
had some issues, but recovered later and, started to get some serious pub.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a rough start for him. There were a lot of sacks in that game.
It was 10 to be specific, Mark. Now, some of them were like Jaron Williams steps out right before the line, and then they counted as 10. But I mean, I would say it was a legit 4 or 5, and they were all on Zion just getting his head beat in. But those are years ago, and that's what you hope for the young men. And I think people get that misconstrued in the media. It may. You're gonna get the views, you're gonna get the subscriptions, you're gonna get the opening of your article and the buzz to make an article or a video where you bash someone or bash a program. But for those of us that are either in coaching or have kids or any of those kinds of things, one of the best things you want to do is to be able to see them come back. Everybody loves a comeback story. Everybody loves to see people grow and get better over time. And Zion Nelson has definitely gone from an F to probably a C+, but there's a lot of growth and another big step that he could definitely do. And I know for a fact that Coach Cristobal, Coach Mirabal, Coach Bain, these people know for a fact that that's what they are working their behinds off to do for him, because no one goes into games like, oh, we can't wait to lose today. No one goes in and like, oh, you know what? I'm not going to coach you hard because I don't like you. Coaches, well, that's a little iffy. But for the most part, coaches want the players to look good, because if I put all into you and you do well and you succeed, that also benefits me. in the long haul, to be able to say, I was the one who made Zion Nelson. I was the one who found him, developed him, and then pushed him out to be an 18th pick for the Cowboys. Those kind of things. Those are very, very, very multi-beneficial for the player and the coach. So you know that we want to win. Oh, I'm sorry. University of Miami football would like to win. I gotta break that eventually. And it starts with the men up front, and it's being able to put a unit that we can be proud of out there. That's actually gonna get the job done, man. Not just look like it, not look great in the uniform, not have the size, but play as a unit. And eventually, a couple years down the road, I can see Miami owning the line of scrimmage if they can find some more Francis Marigoas and Pancake Honchos to put on this team.
Got some super chats on the line. We'll get to them. We appreciate J Love T, who says, yep,
good friend of mine.
The 2013 Miami offensive line was special. What up, H1?
Yeah, that was my favorite. That was one of my favorite offensive lines in 2013. I mean, Mark, those teams that Al Golden had, it's just criminal. The guy couldn't touch 10 wins. I mean, you got first-round draft pick left tackle Eric Flowers. You have 50th overall pick Brandon Linder at left guard. You have Shane McDermott's older brother, Casey McDermott, who was a 7th-round pick from the Giants at center. You had John Feliciano, who was graded as one of the top 5 centers in all of football this past year, was playing right guard for Miami that season, and he was a developmental 3-star at Miami, and is now a center playing for the Buffalo Giants. He was with the Bills for a while, and then this previous season was with the Giants. At right tackle, you had former number 1 player in the country, Chantrell Henderson, who was a late day 3 pick on that offensive line, and 9-3 was the best that you could muster. It's criminal. But that was probably the last really good O-line. The 2017 O-line was okay with Casey McDermott at left tackle and Trevor Darling at left guard and Tyler Gauthier at center and Navon Donaldson at right guard, and then topped off by Tyree St. Louis at right tackle, who was a 4th-round draft pick by the Chargers. So there was some potential with that offensive line too. But the biggest thing that you got to have, Mark, is not, again, the size, the good-looking uniform, the matte black face masks. That stuff doesn't matter. How do they play as a unit? Can they communicate very well? Can a center get it out to the tackles and get it to the quarterback and the running back? And can they all play as a unit? That's something I really miss with Miami football.
Got Nefarious back at it, and I'm not going to state it, but I've got an idea who Nefarious may be. But Miami will look completely different next year.
Yeah, I mean, we hope so. Well, Miami fans, gosh, Mark, that's gonna be so hard to get rid of there. I'll still always be a fan at heart, but Miami fans definitely deserve a better product, and I think it hurts the most to have seen so much buy-in this previous offseason. The most we're at an 80% increase, Mark, in season ticket holders. To see almost
80%.
80%, Mark, increase. So that should tell you what it was. The last 80% increase. To see an almost sold out, packed for a 4-5 football team to play Tallahassee and in-state rival packed. It's just, they deserve a better product. And again, we don't know. Miami fans don't know what the win-loss record will be, but I would love for them to have the opportunity to just be proud of the product on the field, Mark, because all this investment, we begged. Miami fans begged the administration to buy in, to put the money in to build the program. And it's just year one. It's just year one. A lot of other stuff will come, and the benefits of what you do today sometimes don't come until 3 days from now. What you do this year may not pop up until year 4. But I definitely want to be able to see that again. Young kids, I don't like to say that term, but kids on the park throwing up that U and being happy to do it when they score a touchdown. 5 and 6 and 7 and 8-year-olds talking about they want to grow up to be Canes, not Gators or Crimson Tide or going up to Ohio State or going away to USC, because what we have home isn't quality enough to really turn them into what they could be at the highest level. So that's I really want that for them, man, because Mark, it gets to a point where you just want to tap out and you just get tired of believing again and putting all into it and putting hundreds of and sometimes thousands of dollars if you have a family into taking them to games and sitting in that hot sun and buying brand new t-shirts and going to Canes wear and going to campus and taking pictures in front of the U. It can be a lot that eventually you just throw your hands up and say, I'm tired of it, because it can hurt. And watching the product that Miami fans had to endure last year, it was tough. It was very, very tough for them to have gone through that. And for me personally, definitely. I mean, Mark, to the point where I didn't even care that I watched the game. I've never done that in my 27 years of living, almost 27, 26 years of living on this earth. Never had that feeling. But to be able to say, I'll check the score and whatever, and feel nothing because I knew that it wasn't going to be good, never. Don't want that.
I had an idea. Falconer X wasn't here. He always delivers the first super chat with a red sticker, super sticker. And so I thought, I figured this was the deal here. Falconer X. He will return to being Falconer X, but nefarious today. Thank you. We appreciate it.
Okay.
All right. We had a couple more come in. There we go. I love pancakes.
Me too.
Oh, man. Yeah, don't
my
bring
little
up
Asian
anything
trainer
like that.
won't let me do it.
Yeah. That's not good for me to hear either.
Yeah.
Mike Williams, thank you so much for the contribution. Thank you for that. All right.
I one at the bottom from J Love T too.
J Love T coming back. Thank you for that. H1, can you please bring the fans to the reality thinking alumni should leave the NFL to come coach Miami and take a demotion?
Okay. I don't necessarily know if it's a demotion, because the NFL position coach jobs and college position coach jobs, sometimes the college guys are making more. I'm just saying, because the importance of it is looked at a little different. Like, you're coaching professionals, they more likely than not are pretty good to get there to that point. So it's big.
And the importance of recruiting.
Right. You got the recruiting, you have the player development, you have relationship building. It's a little different. Miami fans definitely can get a little overboard as far as thinking that alumni owe the university something. And as far as coming back and coaching there, because, for years, Mark, you get in these Facebook groups and we want Michael Irvin as wide receiver coach, Ray Lewis as linebacker coach, Ed Reed as safety coach, Warren Sapp as defensive line coach. Seriously, it's a thing. It's a thing that happened. We used to have like all alumni staffs, and Alonzo Highsmith is the head coach, and Jimmy had come out of retirement. It's crazy what we've been through just to try to fix it, because the hurt, it just gets that bad. He's trying to find answers. But I don't necessarily agree with you. I don't think that it's a demotion, JLFT. I don't know if you're looking at it because Hankerson, I think I don't know if it's really a demotion. It could be an opportunity for him to step out on his own and really prove what he can bring. So it's a great opportunity for him, and he's a little younger. Now, someone like Reggie Wayne, who's a wide receiver coach for the Colts, I don't know. I don't really know if that he's a little older. I don't know if he wants to get into recruiting because Hankerson has also done recruiting. He's coached in college before. Reggie Wayne basically wants to just teach the craft. You get what I'm saying? He really, really wants to just teach them how hand placement, how we're breaking out low, from just having your toe a certain way will force your hips to come up, all that kind of stuff that these professionals know. He wants to just tweak and coach that kind of stuff. College coaching is a lot different. Not only are we doing what's on the football field, but you got to think about next year and the recruiting of 2-3 cycles ahead while keeping the same guys you have here feeling happy and things of that nature. So I don't necessarily know if they're delusional, um, the Miami Hurricanes fans in that instance, or looking at it as a demotion. I just think that they're excited that some of our alumni who are having success as professional coaches have interest in coming back and being position coaches, not coordinators or the head coach coming in and wanting to be position coaches and help Miami, help the football program at Miami.
I was trying to find what position coaches do make in the NFL, and I couldn't find anything definitive. Every article, of course, you Google what do position coaches make in the NFL, and then you get all these articles about head coaching salaries. So was not able to find anything there. All right, folks, going once, going twice. If anybody else wants to step up with a question.
Oh, Christian Boyle says, he says, I feel that on each one. I'm 31, and this was the first time I felt that way about Miami football. Absolutely. I go on these little tangents because as much as I live in Fargo and have been away from Miami for a while and haven't been to a home game in Miami specifically since 2017's Orange Bowl, I count that as a home game. And then went to the Florida game in 2019. It'll always be in my heart, man. It'll always be near and dear to me, this football program. And when you're from there, it's a little different. Um, and some people may counter and say, well, if I'm not from there, my love for it it's just as strong. I mean, it's a little better because I'm not from there. Whatever, teach his own. But family have gone there, not just athletic family, but family have attended academic and have law degrees and things of that nature from Miami. So I've been on that campus dozens of times, even applied there, thought about going there. So um, it was really, really tough to watch that, especially with a guy I wanted as the helm and even offensively, seeing this offense just be abysmal and struggle to beat teams like Georgia Tech, Virginia Tech. It was just, and sometimes, Mark, what hurts even more is that it's just unexplainable. Like, how do you go from averaging 30 to 35 points the year before? And again, we complained. Again, we didn't think that was good enough, mainly because of the run game with Coach Red Lashley, to 19 and a half points with some of the exact same players with the same quarterback. I mean, it was just super hard to watch. And yes, injuries, big part of it. I know that. Injuries at offensive line, injuries at that quarterback position, confidence in the coordinator, first year on his own as a play caller in a whole different school. I get all those things, but it still did not stop it. That gnawing pain in your chest. It was a heartbreaking to watch, and heartbreaking for to have our guy and Coach Cristobal go through that so much. It was hard to watch, man.
We've got the wholesome one each and every week. We appreciate him. Hope all of you guys do as well on the line. Make it on back next Thursday and bring some friends with you.
Absolutely. So we're going to stick with the big guys. You all know we love to do that. And, me and Mark were talking before the show started, and we want to make sure we get this position breakdowns done because we don't really know how far. So we want to make sure we get position in every week. So next week, we're going to take our The defensive side of the ball's big guys, our space eaters up front at the defensive tackle, the 2 and the 3, the 23 or 32 combination, and also our new stand-up edge rushers off the edge as 5 techniques and sometimes wide 7 techniques that we're going to be bringing to the table off the edge for Miami. We're also going to talk about how Coach Guidry is going to, in his scheme, what that does on a defensive line. So please make sure that we are tuned in next week and bring somebody with you. We've been doing a great job on Twitter, so go ahead and hit the retweet on Twitter and the like button, and let's get it moving in here.
There it is. And I'll be back here, God willing. Defensive line breakdown. I learn a lot and trying to keep up with everyone. So these breakdowns help me as much as anybody.
Yeah, absolutely.
One, thank you so much for all that you do. It's great to see you here every week.
Thank you.
And you have yourself a great rest of your week and weekend. Everybody else out there as well. God bless all of you. And please make it on back next Thursday and bring some folks with you.
Absolutely. I couldn't sign off any better. Only thing I got to add to it is go Canes.